just laugh because, you know, I guess obviously social media listens to you when you're talking and all that fun stuff. But they are advertising for Cleveland, because that's what we're talking about, the Cleveland Health Museum. They're advertising for Cleveland, a museum of illusions.
Yeah, I saw this.
And
It
I was
just
like,
opened.
I don't know how Britta would feel about that, because it's very adjacent to, it's different, but it's still adjacent to magicians.
It's not magician.
It's not magicians, but I was like, they do use illusions.
It's in real life magic eyes.
Yes, it is. But I was like, I don't know how Britta feels about that. But I was like, you know, I think they, like, the Museum of Illusions is like a weird franchise that's happening, because I've seen like multiple ones opening. So it's kind of like that Other World that's in Columbus. But then I was like, can we just start, like, instead of having billionaires in Ohio do a new submarine? You heard about that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So instead of that,
submarine, to go look at the submarine that exploded, and it'll also probably explode.
Yeah. Instead of that, can we petition these rich assholes to, like, give us more museums? Like, can we petition to get the health museum back?
It won't be the health museum. It'll be like
it'll be something dumb.
The Museum of Science, and then it'll be like Sky Daddy made all of the things. Science isn't real. Liberals lie to you.
We don't need a science museum in Northeast Ohio. We have one.
But that's what we'll get. We'll be like, hey, give us a museum, and they'll be like, great. Here is the truth. This is the only history you're allowed to know anymore.
That's true. I guess if these billionaires made like a health museum, there would be like a whole like anti-vax. Like,
there'd be a whole room about how vaccines are terrible.
Yeah.
And they magnetize you.
I just want to walk through the giant tooth again. That's all.
I know.
That's all.
Well, that's Philly has they have like a giant heart in the what is it called? Oh my god, I've been gone so long.
Museum?
No.
Okay.
It's whatever. They have like a science museum there. It's on the Ben Franklin Parkway. I'm gonna remember it later and be so mad at myself for not. But they had like a giant heart that you could walk through, and you would be like inside like one of the atriums. The atria, and it would be like you would hear it pumping, and you'd be like inside and like really claustrophobic, and it would be very, very loud around you, and people used to like panic. And they like closed it, and they're moving it to a different, like, they're setting up a whole new like exhibit in there, and I guess they're like redoing it, and everyone is like very up in arms of like, you better not get rid of the heart, just repaint it and give it back to us.
Yeah, I just want the giant it's like, I remember snippets of it. I don't, like, if you were to ask me to do a walkthrough, I don't remember a whole walkthrough. And then I just laughed too, because, like, obviously the Natural History Museum in Cleveland was, like, a mainstay of my childhood, and they recently remodeled that, and I, again, I'm in my Holden Caulfield feels, because, like, in Catcher in the Rye, he's like, those never change, and I'm like, you're right. Like, when you have like that memory map of like, what is a place you remember? Like, I'm like, that's one of those places, and now it's being changed, and I don't like that because my memory map's gone. And they got me all like, they took the old museum and they built onto it. So it's like you're trying to reorient yourself in the new building of like, where is the old building compared to the new building? Okay, I think I got it. But then I'm like, this is going to be, I know I'm going to feel a certain type of way when I revisit it. And I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah. Was everything open the last time you went, or were they still? Okay.
Yeah.
They were still opening things.
They're still opening things. The observatory was like the only thing that was like from the old building that was open.
The like planetarium?
Yeah, the planetarium.
Got it. Do they still have that, like, it was like really small the last time I went, but it was like essentially a hallway of rocks, like all the gemstones and things.
It's now in the like lobby area, so they have like a very small like section of gemstones.
Interesting.
And then they have they have the brontosaurus, the long neck dinosaur on display. And my tater tot, as we were seeing it, they kept going, rah rah, good, bye, like very sad because we were leaving. And I had to carry them like they were like laying down looking up at the brontosaurus. So I was like, I'm sorry, we gotta go, it's past your nap time.
Existential dinosaur feelings. Yeah. My mom insisted I bring that dinosaur nightlight for your tater tot. She found it like months ago when they were first going through their rah-rah phase and was like, I bought this for them. I was like, Mom, that's terrifying. It has the scariest teeth and it has like a battery operated votive in it, so it's gonna glow, so it's gonna be backlit and like lasers shooting out of its eyes. And so she was like, make sure you take that for them. And I was like, oh my God, Mom, they're gonna have nightmares forever.
It's okay, we do have a Paw Patrol nightlight, so it might balance out. I don't know. I don't know.
Just save it for a few years, maybe. Show them Land Before Time and tell them it's Sharptooth. Oh
my God, the Sharptooth is so scary.
I know.
Movie.
I know.
It's not until like the fourth movie when they have like the baby Sharptooth and you're like, this is okay.
Yeah. What was it? Chomper or something like that. I don't know.
We're just really diving into our nostalgia today. Being in the Cleveland area, thinking about like the Cleveland area, because we're diving into part 2 today of and I don't want to say finishing the story because now I just that like is a wrestling like term now, and I can't like unhear that, and so it feels disingenuous to say that because I'm like, it's not really finishing a story because you know, everybody's it's not finishing a story, it's just finishing this period of time essentially. So welcome back to the Lake Erie Library. And again today I'm not feeling too saucy. I'm just feeling
I know. I'm also feeling like full of brunch at the moment. Yeah. Like I need a nap. So
I need a nap too. I was a little jealous when my tater tot fell asleep. Like I was like, they're not gonna fall asleep in the car. They're not gonna fall asleep in the car. Oh my God, they fell asleep in the car. Okay. Well, how do I get them out? Oh, okay, got them out. Okay, great. But
Beth and I had brunch today with a former coworker who has yet to have a nickname. Dolly Parton. Because she always has clack clacks.
Clack.
So we had brunch today with Dolly Parton, and Beth's tater tot came with us, and then afterwards the restaurant was in like sort of a shopping area, and Beth and I were like, oh, we both need to go to the store, let's go. And we were crossing the street and we were both holding a hand of their tater tot, and Beth was wearing a flannel and I was wearing like a jumpsuit, and I was like, well, yep, we absolutely look like a lesbian couple with our small child. Happy Pride Month. So
especially
we're just leaving.
Shirt had like very colorful, like rainbow-esque jellyfish on it. So yeah.
I look like I probably make artisanal crayons for a kindergarten class. But it's like an outdoor kindergarten class because I feel like we look. I feel like we don't look like we look like a specific brand of like.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Queer
today.
ladies today, like my bi vibes are like suppressed today. It's just all like, what up? Got the U-Haul. Got my 15 cats. Moving in.
Is that? Yeah, I guess. I mean, I literally have on like athletic E type shorts and then like a flannel shirt and then a band t-shirt. Yeah, very specific type.
Yeah, very My Two Moms vibe.
Yeah,
very funny. Anyway, Now that we've had a chuckle, back to the worst fucking stuff ever.
Yeah. So we left off, I believe. Today we're gonna talk about kind of the rest of the journey that Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight all took when they were kidnapped by Ariel Castro and held against their will for over a decade. So I think
we were in around 2004.
Right. So Gina had just been kidnapped, I think, or
roughly. We kind of strayed to discuss the other court case involving his daughter's stepfather,
right,
and that situation. But yeah, this was like not too long after he abducted Gina, and I wanted to circle back because the thing we didn't talk about was when Amanda's mom, Luana, went on the Montel Jordan show.
Yeah.
And spoke with Sylvia Brown, the psychic.
Yeah.
And
shame.
Yes. They had previously already done an America's Most Wanted episode about Amanda and Gina, and both girls and Michelle were forced to watch it in the house. And they also watched this episode of Montel Williams, not Montel Jordan. This is how we do it. Montel Williams, different show. Anyway.
What a very specific vibe of the 90s talk show hosts. What a very specific vibe.
Yeah. So on the episode, Luana was on with Montel and Sylvia, and they showed Beth, not our Beth, but Amanda's sister Beth, sitting in the audience. And Sylvia was asking Luana about a quote-unquote Cuban-looking man who's short and stocky, and Amanda remembers thinking, that's him. He's Puerto Rican, but she's talking about him, so this is legit. She's legit. Mm-hmm. And Luana said, can you tell me if they'll ever find her? Is she out there? And then Sylvia says, oh God, I wish I could punch her in the face. I hate this when they're in water. I just hate this. She's not alive, honey.
I just don't know where, okay, maybe she is, maybe, I don't know. There's probably some Sylvia Brown fans out there. I feel like there are better psychics around. I just feel like Sylvia Brown's just been doing it for so long that everyone likes her.
I mean, I don't know what the general vibe is about Long Island Medium, but I like her.
Oh, Teresa Caputo.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard.
Because I feel like she doesn't say definitive things like this. She's never just yep, 100%, that's her. Mm-hmm. Because she's always I don't know. I hear a lot of voices, or I get a lot of people pushing forward. I can tell you what I got, and you can tell me if you think that's who it is, but I'm not going to be yes, it's your dad.
So it's just frustrating, though, because it's ma'am, people take you seriously, and she's asking you if you, and I hate that she's I'm where are you getting that from? What kind of medium are you?
Yeah, and I don't know if that's just how things were presented to her, because anybody who's got a little bit of a sensitivity, or can see through the veil or things like that, or receives messages, they all have their own indicators of well, I see them in water and that means this. It doesn't necessarily mean she's physically underwater. Mm-hmm. But I think for her that just meant that if they're in water, they're dead when she sees them. But in any case, Amanda just remembers being distraught at this because she knew her mom fully believed and trusted Sylvia, and so now she's now my mom's gonna think I'm dead. Why would she say that?
Right.
And she wrote a letter to her mom and was just can you please just send this to her so that she knows, don't listen to Sylvia Brown and that I'm alive. I just don't want her to think I'm dead. And in it, she wrote that she was being held hostage. And
I'm not laughing.
And she was yeah, I'm being held hostage. I didn't say who you were, and I didn't say that I didn't give any details. I just said I want to come home, but I can't. And he was just like, well, you shouldn't believe in psychics anyway. It's stupid, and wouldn't send it for her. And after this, she noticed that anytime she would see her mom, like in the newspaper or on TV, it was very different after that. She like took down all of the yellow ribbons and stuff that she had up at their house. And she didn't like decorate for Christmas, even though she had been decorating for Christmas.
She had bought like Amanda, the first year that Amanda was missing, she bought Amanda Christmas presents. Like not like anything extravagant, but like little things that like I want her to know that like we're thinking about her. And then after the Sylvia Brown incident, like she stopped buying her birthday and like Christmas presents because, you know.
Yeah. And then in the book that I read when I was researching, I'm sure this probably came from Beth, Amanda's sister, but they said after like the recording of that show on the drive back to the airport, like Luana just didn't say anything, and they like drove past Ground Zero, which I mean, like this is 2004, so this is still like this just happened like 3 years ago. They hadn't even like built the monument yet. And like she didn't even mention anything then. And she would like sit on Amanda's bed and listen to the radio and just kind of like smoke and drink in silence by herself after that. And similarly, like spring of 2005, Nancy and Felix, Gina's parents, kept holding candlelight vigils every Friday on the corner where she was last seen. But even by then, you know, there were less and less people showing up each time, which is so heartbreaking. They started to notice during this time just how many girls were going missing in the U.S. And they felt like every time they had a chance, this was no longer just about Gina. They had an obligation to talk about all of these girls who were going missing. So Nancy started making calls to groups that were like supporting issues like this, and she was, you know, educating herself about it. And she was amazed to find out that there were thousands of children that went missing every year in America, and she had no idea until this point. And I'm like, yeah, I know, we don't think about these things.
No, I mean, it's so scary, but, you know, like thinking about it, I know we talked, this was a few episodes ago, I don't remember which one we were talking about, where we were talking about how, like, as a child, I would always, like, at Walmart or Sam's Club, like, be stuck by, like, I'd always look at the missing children's, like, posters. And I remember for a long time, like, those posters didn't have the kind of, with technology, they have now, like, this is what we think this person would age up and look like. But before it was like, well, the last picture we have of this person is when they were like 16, and you have to kind of guess from there. And I remember like talking about me studying them because I was like, I want to be one of the people that finds these people. And then they also found, like, Gina's parents also found out as they were going through this how a lot of the breakthroughs in cases didn't come from the police and stuff like that. Like, they're coming from people looking at the missing children.
Yeah.
So what I'm telling you, people, listeners, you look at those missing children's posters because you just never know. Just take a look at them. Go, okay, you might see them. Maybe you'll never see them, but it doesn't hurt to look. Actually, I was thinking about that too. I was like, why don't more stores have missing children posters? And I was like, it was only Sam's Club and Walmart that I can, like, recall.
I think Meijer had them because we were just there. It was either Meijer or the Walmart. We were just there the other day, and on the way out, we like pointed at them and we were like, Beth, Beth would remember all of your faces.
So yeah, I just think that's, like, really interesting that, like, there are so many cases that, like, the authorities are kind of bogged down with them, and they don't really have the resources or the manpower to essentially, like, look into it, which is why there are also now so many nonprofits dedicated to that.
Yeah. And so, you know, I mean, I don't know that any of us can speak to how we would feel or act or how long we would sustain that kind of energy in this situation. And I hope that, you know, my wish would be that nobody would ever have to find out.
Right.
But we know that this world is fucked up, so I hope that most of us never find out. But you know, like, this took a toll on Gina's mom, Nancy, and so she remembers one night when she was just like, that, like, I just can't do this anymore. Like, this is too much. This is so sad. And they had found, you know, she hadn't even heard about this girl named Christina Adkins, who was from the same neighborhood, who had gone missing like a decade before Amanda and Gina, until Gina went missing. And so she was like so aware now of all of this happening so close to home. And she just kind of like hit this low point, and she prayed, you know, that was her solace, was in her faith. And she prayed and felt like an immediate like relief and renewed energy. And she took that as a sign from God that it's like, he's telling me not to stop. Like, all right, I gotta go do this. And as like a way of keeping her faith after that, she went and opened a bank account for Gina and deposited like $20 or $30 every month in it, because she's like, she's gonna need this when she gets out.
Smart.
Yeah. And also, like, I think just having that physical thing is also like
an act of faith, an act of like complete act of faith.
Yes. So that was like roughly spring, April of 2005. Fast forward to the end of the year around Christmas. It is like Christmas Day 2005. And Amanda has been like watching the news all of this time. And she turns on the news at 6:00 and sees on the news that her mom's in the hospital. Mm-hmm. She has like a pancreatic illness. She sees this picture of her and like realizes how much weight she's lost and how bad of shape she is. And she lights a candle for her mom, and she puts like her picture on the bed with her and is just like thinking about her and sending like positive energy towards her. She keeps trying to look through the news or the newspaper to get information about what's going on with her mom. And it's a few days later when she sees that her mom has C. diff, because the doctor didn't. Ugh. She says the doctor didn't wash his hands before doing surgery on her. So
we know, because we had to deal with a long time ago somebody that worked with us having C. diff.
Yeah,
we know that, and just in general, like, we know that hospitals are actually, for a place that is so sanitary, it is like the one place that you could absolutely get C. diff, no issue.
And staff.
I don't know how to, like, when I say no issue, I just mean it's very prevalent there.
It's very prevalent. And the reason that most people don't get it is because they have enough good gut bacteria to like sort of like fight off any exposure to it. Whereas people who are on antibiotics for long, like sustained periods of time, antibiotics like wipe out your good gut bacteria.
That's why they
throw off your whole system.
That's why they tell you to eat like when you have antibiotics, you're supposed to eat it, the pill, with like yogurt.
Yeah.
So that you're putting active cultures of bacteria.
Take a probiotic or something.
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's once that's wiped out, before your system can sort of like recalibrate and build that back up again, you get exposed to C. diff, and then your body can't fight it off because it doesn't have enough of the good bacteria.
The more you know.
Yep.
Do.
Right. And so she finds out her mom's got this like infection now, that she has to have another surgery, and she has internal bleeding, and she like starts to realize like this is pretty dire. And so she asks him, like, if my mom dies, would you let me go to the funeral? And he says yes. Fucker. Right. And she's like, well, maybe he'd like let me wear like a wig or something, like when we go out in the backyard and we have to like wear things. She's or like I could wear a disguise.
Mentally trying to prepare, like, what am I gonna be put through to go see my mother? Like, that's all I want to do, is I want to see my mother.
Right. And so she keeps just like waiting and waiting for updates on this. And then there's another news update, and it's worse. Now her mom's in critical condition. And she sees her sister at the hospital, and her sister's holding a baby. And she's like, I didn't even know that my sister was pregnant. Like, I have a nephew And like, I didn't even know that he existed. Like, the mental toll that like takes of like all these world events that they experienced while they were in there, and like all the things that changed in their family dynamics while they were in there, and like you're finding out from like a fucking news story,
right,
and like you haven't seen your family for like a year, and then all of a sudden like you see your parent like diminished on the news.
It's like when COVID happened, and then like we like kind of came back, and it was like people that you hadn't seen. You're just like, wait, you're pregnant, you're married, or like you like who died, what? But it's 10 times worse than that, because this is your mother. Like, these are people that you talk to, you lived with every single day, and that's all been taken away from you, and you are living on this promise from this man who does not keep his promises, and you're just hoping and praying that maybe there will be like a modicum of like mercy and sympathy, but there's not.
No.
Like, awful.
Yeah. So around that Christmas and New Year's, Amanda is just like watching the news, hoping for information about her mom. Her mom has 2 surgeries within like 2 days. And then she has like no updates on this until March, when it's like a sort of normal day. Like, he gets up when his alarm's gonna go off. He like has been making her sleep downstairs with him. He takes her upstairs to the room.
And at this point, we should point out that at this point, so he moved. There's 2 bedrooms upstairs, and they're connected by a doorway. And he moved. Amanda at first was in the smaller bedroom, and then when he kidnapped Gina, Gina was at first kind of downstairs with him, but he didn't assault her right away. I think because he realized that she was his daughter's good friend.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, right? Like, I mean, we're not.
And obviously, like, he did end up doing awful things to her, so it clearly didn't deter him.
It didn't deter him by much, but eventually he moved her from, she was in the basement, and then she was like downstairs, and then he eventually moved her upstairs, but then he put Amanda in the bigger bedroom, and then he put Gina and Michelle in the smaller bedroom. Now, for Gina and Michelle, like for Michelle, because she's been there the longest, this was kind of a reprieve, because now she had someone to actually talk to. But for Amanda, like, he was still playing mind games with all of them and pitting them against one another. Ooh, here I am. Sorry. You're going to have to edit that out.
That's okay.
He's still definitely playing mind games against them, and, like, you know, telling them, like, how, like, stuck up Amanda is and how she hates them. And then Amanda would hear, like, you know, he's saying to Amanda, well, I don't assault them. I have you. Like, you're, you know, and then he's clearly, like, the worst of it is he's clearly, like, assaulting Gina and Michelle in the same room. And as I think we said last time, like, that is truly heinous, because you are powerless to watch this horrendous act in front of you. You were powerless to stop it. And Amanda thinks, because, like, when Michelle and Gina are first together, that they're, like, you know, they're talking and they're laughing and they're trying to find just a shred or modicum of levity in this really fucked up situation. And she's just like, they're, like, talking about me. They're laughing. Ugh, gross. Like, why are they doing that? Like, can't they, like, figure out how to... And it was just because they were all being manipulated at that point. So that they've been dealing with that for months. So Amanda doesn't even really have the solace of, like, they're one room away from each other. They can clearly hear each other because there's a connecting door between the rooms. And she can't even, like, hey, I want to talk to you about, like, my mom. I'm really worried about her.
Yeah.
Because if she were to do that, they would be liable to be, like, punished or something like that.
Right. And so on that day, that was like March 2nd, when she turns on the news and she sees that her mom has passed from a heart attack. And I mean, obviously this is devastating when you are with your parent or a family member when they go, but then to also be like so far removed and you couldn't even say goodbye, and you couldn't, like, her mom was in the hospital for months. And so this was like heartbreaking, obviously. This doorway that Beth was just mentioning, Amanda in the book wrote that she remembers like Gina coming to the door and being like, did you see the news? Like, I'm sorry about your mom, and like talking to her through the doorway about that. And then when Amanda brought up later that he said that she could go to the funeral, he like gaslit her about it. I was like, I never said that. Like, you're lying. And this is like par for the course too, because he this whole time has been like, I didn't abduct you. You came here because you wanted to. You got in the car when I asked you to.
You wanted to. This has never been assault. This has never been rape. It's always been consensual. You guys have always wanted it. I'm like,
disgusting.
What?
A month and some change later, April 22nd of, what is this, 2005?
Mm-hmm.
Amanda realizes that she has not had her period, and she's like, well, shit, I think I'm pregnant. And she's like, I think that this is pretty wild that I've been here all this time with this happening to me. I have not gotten pregnant, and then as soon as my mom dies, now I'm gonna have a baby. And she's like, I think my mom sent me this baby from heaven because she knew I was going to need like an angel to keep me going.
Right. Because at this point, she's like, I've lost my mother. Like, I'm depressed. Like, suicide is not like, if you were in that situation, suicide is not like, I get it. I'm like, nobody would have judged them if that's what would have happened to them. So the fact that they didn't actually complete that was a miracle and a testament to their resiliency. But Amanda was at an extremely low point where she thought about it, and she was also terrified to like tell Ariel about it, or that he would find out, because she knew that Michelle had gotten pregnant at least twice at this point, and he made her miscarry, like by he violently like beating her, and then
so awful,
and then like gaslighting her and saying, why did you kill my baby? I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, just an all-around trash bag human being.
I'm like, hell seems too nice for you. Was there something worse? I don't know. I know Dante says there's 7 layers. Do whatever's the worst of those 7 layers. I said layers. Levels.
It's a layer cake of hell. The 7-layer cake of hell. One of them's a sponge. Don't ask which.
I'm trying to think of
a Victoria sponge.
What would be like the worst type of cake that you could?
A dry chocolate.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. Maybe, I don't know, like an undercooked, like parts of the layer are undercooked, but other parts are like overcooked.
Crispy on the edges.
Yeah. And you're just like, how did you do that?
Easy bake oven.
Yep.
So after Amanda's pregnancy has come about and he finds out about it, and his original thinking was like, well, we could always just like take the baby to a church and leave it and someone would adopt it. Like, that would take care of it.
It's the 90s. It's fine. Like I'm like, buddy, it only works in like 80s and 90s movies. Like, that's not a thing that like people.
I mean, yeah, church-wise, there are fire stations though that do have essentially, it's like I don't want to call it a night deposit box, but that's what it reminds me of. There's like a little box that's like inside the building, and it has a door, and it's like heated in the wintertime. It's like temperature controlled. And if for like any reason you just like feel that like you don't have to answer questions, you don't have to talk to anybody, they just don't want like a baby just being abandoned, there are some fire stations that have where you can go and leave an infant, and as soon as the door is like closed, an alarm goes off inside so that somebody can go and retrieve the baby from it, and then can like start the process of getting them care. So like there are some places, because like, this is zero judgment. Like, there are situations where people are like, I can't take care of this child. I, like, whether you wanted that baby to start with and then have, like, had something happen and you can no longer, in whatever way, mentally, physically, financially, be a parent. It's a much better scenario to put that baby in a situation where they can get immediate care and get into, I mean, like, they're going to end up in the foster care system with CPS, which is, like, a whole other nightmare, but it's better than, like, the alternative.
Yeah, it's better than the alternative for sure.
So, I mean, there is still sort of a modern day equivalent of that, but, like, you can't just put a baby in a basket with a note pinned to them and leave them on a doorstep anymore.
This isn't Anastasia.
Right, exactly. This is not Buddy the Elf in his diaper crawling into Santa's bag. You know, obviously she's got, like, morning sickness. She's not being fed super well. She's not in great health.
Yeah, like,
but he has had children before, and he's like, oh, well, she does have to eat. So he's like, now instead of taking food to Gina and Michelle first, he's taking it to Amanda first, and then they get to eat second, and then they have to sit and listen to her throw up. And, like, Gina was just
I love that and because we both read the same book.
Yeah.
Like, Michelle doesn't complain about it in her book, just about her being pregnant. She's just like, I don't understand why she got to keep her pregnancy and I didn't get to keep mine.
Valid question.
And that's never could really be addressed. I love Gina's just straight up like, she's smells also the youngest
too. She's the youngest too, and she's had him, like, feeding her this idea that, like, well, Amanda thinks she's better than you.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, I get it. She would, like, make, like, puking sounds to, like, fuck with her. Like, I get it. I'm sure she's like, in hindsight, like, okay, like, whatever. At the time, I thought it was very funny. And, like, she was talking about they would blast, like, Laffy Taffy, that Shake That Laffy Taffy song, because Amanda didn't like it to, like, annoy her. But again, like, I'm not putting this on them. I'm putting this on him for being, like, so manipulative of them.
Right. I mean, we don't know day in, day out. And we know that they really couldn't talk. It's, as I said, they couldn't talk through the doorway because he would listen in, and he would also, like, he didn't want them talking to one another. We also know that out of the three, I think Michelle got the roughest treatment for sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's from the information we've been given.
Yes. So I think that she kind of had to carve her own path, because I've read reviews about these books too, and people are like, Michelle is not mentioned at all. And this, like, so Michelle Knight has her own memoir, and then Gina and Amanda wrote their memoir.
They did ask if she wanted
to
be included, and she said, like, I'm gonna tell my own story, and they're like, okay, like, more power to you. Like, there's no hard feelings here about anybody.
And somebody pointed out that, like, publishing wise, if she's doing her own, they can't just, like, they can put her in. She's obviously in those events, but, like, they don't have to focus on her because she's going to tell her story.
Yeah.
So, like, publishing copyright wise, like, it would be almost infringement if they're like, well, Michelle said this at this exact time.
Yes, exactly. And so, I mean, they do mention conversations with Michelle, and, like, she's gonna feature heavily here in a second. Yeah. And so, you know, I mean, it's not, it's everybody telling their own story in the way they want to tell it.
And yeah, and Michelle very much, I mean, obviously she was questioning kind of why Amanda was able to keep it, but she also realized that, like, Ariel favored Amanda, and also, like, immediately had started calling her his wife.
Yeah. And
so, you know, Gina and Michelle were just kind of these extras. And then it's just also very interesting because I mean, not interesting, but it's just, you, like, God, you can't even imagine, because she's questioning that, but then she is kind of also expected to know things about pregnancy because she also went through pregnancy.
Right, because she had her son, Joey.
Mm-hmm. So, it's just, you feel sorry for her. But Amanda also said that the reason why she thinks that Michelle was treated differently is Michelle had no problem speaking up and speaking her mind.
Yes. And Gina has said things too where she's like, there were so many times when I would be like, Michelle, like sometimes you just have to keep your mouth shut. And Michelle was like, fuck that noise.
Right. And so Amanda's like, I would just pretend that she's like, obviously I've thought about killing him. Mm-hmm. And she's like, whenever I have a chance, I would kill him. No second thought.
Yeah.
No hesitation. But she was also like, sometimes you just got to keep the peace, even though you don't agree with that. And like, it's disgusting.
Yes.
And it's all sorts of, you know.
And at this point, now being pregnant and wanting to keep her baby, she's like, I need him to be invested in this pregnancy.
Yes. Very
so
much
if I'm nicer to him and I play pretend and he gets more of what he wants out of this, then like my baby is safer. So that's what I'm gonna do.
Do not blame her. I
don't either. So September of that year, they see on the news that there is like movement in Gina's case. A guy named Matthew Hurate, I didn't really look up how to pronounce his last name. There was a tip that he murdered Gina and buried her body under his garage. So the police were like tearing apart his garage and like ripping up the ground under it. And so they're sitting and watching this on the news. And normally, up until this point, anytime they would see news that someone was searching for them, but the police were following like a bad lead, essentially, Castro sort of like relished this. It's that very like gross, cocky, like serial killer shit of like, I'm getting away with it. Look how fucking stupid they are.
Yeah. Did it remind you of a little bit? It's like the same high as like when Son of Sam would like go back to like where he would have murdered people and then like would set fires to the place, and it was just like, ha 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 ha, and I'm like, dumb.
Yeah.
Dumb.
Yeah. So this house was really close to where they were at on Seymour Ave. It was on like West 50th. They could walk there. It was like a 10-minute walk.
It was so close that there were helicopters circling their house and they could hear them.
And he was like watching them. Like he was running out to like look and see where they were outside. And so this was like the first inkling of like, oh, well, like normally he's super like, haha, look at these idiots. And like this was the first time that he sort of seemed like, oh shit.
Yeah, like, oh no, this is, I could get caught.
Right. Also during this time, he had been checking out like library books about like medicine and things like that. And Amanda would ask to look at them and he wouldn't let her take them up to her room. And she's like, I know it's because he like knew what I was going to do, because she thought about writing notes in the library books so that then when they were returned, somebody would see that it was like her name and like the address and that maybe someone would come for her. And she's also freaking out because, you know, she's in her 3rd trimester. She's like, I don't know anything really outside of what I read in these books about like what I'm going to, like, I'm in health class, I guess. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do to like have this baby. Like my sister was in labor for 18 hours with my first niece.
Right.
And like, she was in the hospital, so like what am I gonna do here, and like who's gonna help me, because like these girls don't really seem like they like me very much. And so she is like sort of trying to mentally prepare for that. And then Christmas Day of 2006,
it was Christmas evening, and then it went past midnight, and Ariel went over to the room next door, woke Michelle up. Michelle was upset because she hates Christmas now, because that was her son's favorite time of year. So it just reminds her of that. And she's like, I've spent so many Christmases here now. And he's like, I need you to wake up. You have to help Amanda give birth. What a way to wake up. Hey, wake up. I'm going to unchain you. You're going to do as I say. And you're going to essentially like be an OB for the evening. Okay, thanks, bye.
Yeah, come be a doula for this other girl that I kidnapped. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me get the fucking baby pool out of the attic because I don't want her to make a mess.
I don't want her to make... I was like...
What a piece of shit.
Like, I was like... When I first read, I'm going to get the baby pool, like, the first half of that sentence, I was like, oh, yes, for, like, a water birth to help with the... like,
no,
and I was like...
just a dry-ass pool for her to sit in because... the already dirty-ass mattress that he can't be bothered to, like, clean for them.
Right.
He doesn't want it to get gross.
Right. Ugh. So then, and this is, to me, as somebody that has given birth in a very sterile hospital environment, this is wild. And I was like, you know, Beth, prior to, like, hospitalizations, women gave birth in the wild at their houses and stuff all the time. I'm like, yeah, but she had another prisoner essentially giving, like, an imprisoned woman helping her give birth, like that in vibes. That's what she had going on.
Yeah,
of her.
It is very, like, sweet. The way she describes, like, the situation is like Michelle's like teaching her in the moment, like, this is how you have to breathe, like, you have to keep breathing, and then was like sort of joking around with her, like, here, hold my hand, squeeze it. Oh my god, that hurts so bad, like, just trying to make her laugh.
But then it was like, thank God Michelle was was and had given birth, because I don't think she would have had anybody help her.
No,
because
I think she would have been on her own in that room, with nothing.
Castro just sat in a rocking chair in the corner and was just like, and I'm like, wow, what did you do for your ex-wife's birth? Nothing? Did you go sit in the waiting room? So the sheer fact that, like, Michelle was, like, coaching her, and that she went into labor naturally with no real complications is amazing. Now, when the baby is born, however, she's not breathing or crying right away. And, you know, Amanda is panicking, rightfully so. And Michelle resuscitates the baby. Like, Michelle gets the baby to breathe. She blows air into the baby and she whacks it on the back, which is par for the course, and the baby is then alive and crying and well. However, immediately, because the baby is crying, Castro is panicking, like, this entire time. He's like, shut the baby up, and I'm just like, buddy,
it's a baby.
It's a baby. What were you expecting?
Baby's gonna cry. Also, baby's gonna poop. You didn't buy any fucking diapers, so he, like, cuts up a sock for this poor baby. Like, get the fuck out of here. Go kick rocks with no shoes on. I was just, like, so angry reading about this, and then, like, how he was like, well, I can't go buy baby stuff because someone will see it and they'll question why I'm buying baby things.
I'm like, buddy, are you that paranoid that you think somebody's gonna look at your purchases? I'm like, if you buy it at the corner store that you always go to, yeah, they're gonna question it. But if you're going, like, I'm not trying to abet his criminal activity, but I'm just like, you go to a big box store or something like that, but you're so cheap you're not going to go there. But you go to Walmart or Target or something, no one's going to say shit. They don't know you. Like,
yeah. So stupid.
So this poor baby has no diapers, has to be in a sock. Like, they make the baby's first outfit a sock. She has to think of baby names, and Castro feels like he gets a say in the matter. And I'm like, buddy, you get no say in this. And so she settles on the name Jocelyn, which I think is very cute.
It is a pretty name.
And then
I will also say that forever in Amanda's mind, Jocelyn has always been Jocelyn Berry.
Yes. Yes. And, well, and
not Castro.
Legally, she is Jocelyn Berry. So she's expected by Castro to cut her own umbilical cord. I was like, buddy, what the hell?
He also was just like, come downstairs now, and like cleans off the baby and is like cooking fucking eggs and is like, yeah, like, help me cook breakfast. Michelle can hold the baby, and it's like cold as shit because there's no heat in the kitchen.
He's just like, wow, I can't believe you're up and at him already.
Fuck that guy.
I'm like, what was she allowed to say? No, I'm gonna sit here in the kiddie pool and chill out in my own viscera for like a few hours. I'm tired. I just gave birth.
Gross.
Like, are you kidding me? So I did think it was I felt so bad because I'm like, he also, as a new mother, if you decide to breastfeed, you pick your own journey, and that is a whole topic for another conversation. But her milk didn't come in right away, and he refused to buy formula for her because he's like, no, that'll raise red flag. Also, it's super expensive, which, fair point, it is very expensive to buy formula, but fed is best. Feed the baby. The baby is crying because obviously she is hungry. And then he's like, shut that baby up. And I'm like, buddy, like, what the fuck? This is like your 5th kid. Like, you have
but do you think he actually did anything to fucking take care of his other kids?
No, he probably never even changed a diaper.
Absolutely not.
But I just you feel so badly for Amanda. Like, she's a new mother. She's prisoner. She's, she's still being assaulted. Like, she's still, like, good God.
Yeah.
And while the baby was a kind of a high emotional point for all 3 women, like, they all said, like, she brought a light to our lives, and, like, he was treating them slightly better than he was before.
Yeah.
Like, she still has no real support. Like, she's trying to get this baby, like, to sleep and trying to get this baby fed. Eventually, she is able to breastfeed and, like, things start to go more smoothly. But, like, it was a very rough transition period.
Yeah.
And, as the baby gets older, he does start to relent and give them a little more freedom. So, for example, when Jocelyn wants to start crawling, he, like, puts in an actual carpet in their room so that the baby has carpet to crawl in instead of the nasty floor. At some point, he eventually does let their chains get taken off.
Yes.
They're not taken out of the room.
I don't know if it was... it wasn't for a while, because Jocelyn was crawling before he started doing that.
Jocelyn was crawling.
Because she would crawl too far away, and Amanda would have to try to get her to come closer, because she couldn't grab her.
Come back, baby. But eventually, I would say about a year or 2 after... once Jocelyn was old enough to start verbalizing stuff and wanted to walk, he started taking the chains off.
Yes.
But as Michelle said, once the chains were off, he was still just as paranoid as ever. And she said while the physical chains were off, the mental chains were not off. He was still gaslighting them into, like, if you leave, I will kill you.
Yes.
If you leave, I will do this, this, and that. So,
right, and now there's also a baby in this that I'm sure he also used as, like, leverage of, like, not just like, okay, well, I'm gonna kill you, Amanda, and then who's gonna take care of the baby,
right?
But also, like, I would not have put it past this piece of shit to be like, I'll kill the fucking kid right in front of you if you don't do what I say.
Yeah, I mean, they don't
like
mention
they
that,
don't say that, but I would fully bet that happened. Or that he would say that he would, like, abuse her or something like that.
And they also didn't want the baby to see stuff. Like, they wanted her to, like, grow up kind of as normally as humanly possible in that situation. But then, him being the paranoid asshole he was like, she's starting to talk. You guys can't use your real names. So you gotta come up with names. So, Michelle comes up with Juju, and she comes up with Juju because she always liked Juju, the candy, the Juju.
Yeah.
And so she's like, you can call me that. And then
she's, like, so tiny too that it's like it's like actually kind of a cute nickname for her.
And then she called Gina Chelsea because Gina just liked the name Chelsea. He's like,
it was like a character on a TV show.
No,
too.
You can't call yourself this, and that. I'm like, buddy, how you don't get a say in what they're being called? Like, why do you get to pick that? And then Amanda was called Nandy.
Yeah, because that's what her niece called her on, like, a voicemail.
So fucking, like, disgusting.
Yeah,
that's how he was like, yeah, let's pick that one.
Yes. There was a point, like, I'm gonna jump ahead to, like, 2009, and then I'll jump back. There was a point when Jocelyn was, like, around that time, she's like 2.5, almost 3, and she's starting to ask questions, and Amanda would cover like the chains up with a blanket, and she like your tater tot went like, what's that? And she's like, that's my my bracelet. And she was like, this is starting to be a problem. Like, she's gonna start asking questions about like why that's there. And he would not move the chains out of the room because he is a psychopath. And I mean, not clinically, I'm just saying this because he's such a piece of shit. He wanted them there as a reminder of like, I could easily just chain you up again. Like, you're not actually free.
Yep.
And so she like hid it under like a plastic tub at one point. But jumping back to June in 2008, June 12th, 2008, like 8:30 p.m., he's out on a motorcycle, cuts across traffic, pulls into a gas station. A Cleveland police officer saw it and then also saw that the license plate on his motorcycle was not like the correct way, like left to right. It was like hanging off and like almost upside down. And so he pulled up behind him and he had his dash cam running on this and asked for his license. And like Castro's like being pissy with the cop. So this is all like on freaking dash cam footage. And he's like, look, man, first of all, your plate's not on right. Like, that's illegal. You have to fix that. Give me your driver's license. He's like, you don't have a motorcycle license. You can't be riding this. He recognizes Castro's name because his brothers have had like a bunch of traffic violations. And also he like, that's like his beat. He's like always on Seymour Ave. So he like recognizes them and he's like, look, man, like you got this, and this going on. Like you really want to fuck with me right now by giving me an attitude? Like I could take you in and arrest you right now. And he's like, no, I don't want that. He's like, these plates don't even belong on this bike. Like, what year Yamaha is this? He's like, oh, it's a 2000. And he's just like, where's the Harley? And he's like, oh, I traded the Harley in for this one. And he's like, well, you just keep digging this hole fucking deeper and deeper and deeper, buddy, because that's not the truth at all.
They were so close. But then I'm like, if he would have been arrested, like if we play this out hypothetically, so say he was getting really pissy with the cops, and if he would have gotten arrested, who knows how long he would have been in jail. What would have happened to these women?
Exactly.
Like, they would have starved.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit.
Yes, terrifying.
Yes.
And so this is like so stupid too, though. But he's like, all right, like I know this guy. I know that like if he gets arrested, he's probably gonna lose his job as a school bus driver. I'm gonna cut him some slack.
Do him a solid and let him go.
And he's like, but you are not driving this bike home. You're like a mile from home. Push the fucking bike. And he like waited because he's like, I bet you his ass is gonna like, he's gonna push it around the corner and then he's gonna jump on it and drive away. And he like waited 20 minutes and then drove by, and this asshole's like still pushing the motorcycle home. So like, he's a fucking idiot. But he also was like, I gotta like watch my back now. I'm gonna get in trouble. So now we had the shit on the news with the helicopters. We have him getting hemmed up by the cops because he's riding a motorcycle without a license. Like, I feel like at this point he's gotta start feeling like the noose starting to tighten here. Like,
right.
Like it's starting to be a little more, you know, like I've got this like child who is also starting to talk, that's like gonna ask questions if people are around. And like he had to watch his other grandkids at one point, and they were in the house, and like Jocelyn was older and was like, why can't I go like play with my cousins? Like, and why do I have to stay quiet up here?
Right. And all the rules, she's essentially like, yes, I'm not allowed to leave here until Daddy gets home from like work,
right? Because
he would lock the doors.
Yes.
Yeah, I like.
And then when he did eventually start taking her out too, he'd be like, well, you have to lay on the floor when I pull in and out of the driveway.
And Amanda's like, this kills me because she's not like, that is the only way she's going to know that this is normal. And I was like, also, that's not safe. Like, what if he gets into a car accident?
Well, he also like ran over the dog at one point too, and then made Gina help him bury it in the backyard, which was like also devastating. And he like made her wear, it was like a wig and a hat and like sunglasses, and like now we're used to seeing like surgical masks because of COVID, but at the time like it was not a thing that you normally saw people wearing, and it like looked so fucking ridiculous that Gina's like, great, like I look so wild, like maybe someone will see it and be like, what the hell's going on over there, and call the cops. Like,
he at one point too, after Jocelyn is born, he has Michelle go out and dig like a 6-foot hole in the backyard.
Yes, that's so fucked up.
And he doesn't tell her what it's for. So she just keeps digging.
Yes.
And digging. And she's like, I need to not go as fast because I think this might be for me.
Yeah.
Like,
that's
because he will not tell her what it is.
So scary.
It's so scary. They never did anything with the hole. He just did it to like fuck with her. Which is like, God, what a trash
asshole
human.
Around 2010 in the memoir, Gina like she kind of recounts this like period of depression she went in, which again like makes total sense to me. Like, this life you're living in mental health wise, not conducive to like good mental health.
God, the fact that like, they'd be like, oh my God, I got daylight out of this. Like, I got to go outside for the first time in years.
Yeah.
And even like bathroom routines. Oh my God, I finally, like, Michelle didn't take a shower for over a year when she was first like abducted.
Yes. And so she was like doing dishes in the kitchen with Michelle, like cleaning things up, and she cut herself and was like, oh, this is like something that I actually like have control over in my life. And so she starts self-harming in like whatever way that she can. And Michelle was just like, what, like, knock it off. Don't do that. And then like, as this continues, this like habitual self-harm that she's doing, she goes to Amanda and is like, hey, I have to tell you something. Like, I cut myself and it's because of you. And Amanda's like, what? Like, what?
What? Yeah.
And so she shows her like all of like, she's been like cutting her arms and stuff like that. And they start talking and she's like, well, it's because of like all these things that he like, you tell him like lies about me and then I get punished. And she's like, I don't do that. Like, he's telling you that.
Right. And she's
like, and I don't want you to be like doing this to yourself.
And this is after they had like made the pact together that like when they're stuck in the van that they, and you know, she's thinking about escaping, like Amanda is thinking about escaping, that this is after they had like bonded essentially. And she's like, okay, from now on, like, we need to be better than, you know, so they're human, like, they're trying, and, you know, he's just so good at manipulating them that, like, it's like, what else do you have to compare it to? You can't even talk to the person to be like, hey, did you actually say this, or is he just full of shit? They can't even do that, so, you know, and when you have this day in, day out, and you're controlled by fear, because they're, you know, fearful of their lives. They're fearful of, like, what else can they do to me to punish me? Like, what else is going to be done? Because I'm already being assaulted, like, daily. I'm, like, poor Michelle is beaten daily. Ugh. You know, like, what else can I do to be, like, what else can be taken away from me? So you don't blame Gina for like trying to take control, and then like Amanda in her mind is getting all this preferential treatment because she has a baby, and Amanda in her mind is like, but I got my own struggles and you don't see them. Yeah. And like, despite me having a baby, he still wants to like assault me all the time. I too work a full-time job, and I'm like, how do you have time to do all of this? I mean, I guess if you're not cooking or cleaning or I don't know.
He's also a bus driver, so it's not like he's driving all day.
That's true.
He takes kids to school in the morning, and then he picks them up in the afternoon, and then he doesn't do anything in between that time.
Yeah, that's true. That's my logistic. I'm like, what? How do you have time to do that all the time to these poor women?
It's gross. And I don't buy his bullshit excuse of like,
I'm a victim.
I have a sex addiction, and I've been like this since I was a kid, and I was assaulted and molested. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. I mean, like,
right,
whether that's true or not, I feel like you're using it as an out.
You can have those things, but you still have free will to not harm another human.
Exactly.
Wild concept. I
like, who knows, maybe it's true, but also it's very convenient. It's a very convenient thing for you to say.
But there's also people that have also been molested as children or assaulted, like that's like,
and they don't go doing this.
No, that's like
exactly,
that's a stigma.
Yes.
Like that, you know, that if you are assaulted as a child or as like a teenager, that you're gonna grow up and become a violent human. Like, no, usually the people that have mental health issues are the ones being kind of abused the most, but that doesn't in turn make them violent people. Like, the people that do these violent acts are the outliers, but that's who you hear about, and that's why there's like a weird stereotype, but like it's statistically like not even remotely true.
Yeah. It's gross. He's gross.
Yes.
For the 9 millionth time, fuck that guy. So as Jocelyn starts getting older, he starts taking her outside more. He starts like taking her to church. He starts taking her to the park,
to the library.
Yes,
but he takes her to the library, but not the same branch all the time. Like he goes to different libraries in the area, which luckily for him, in Ohio,
yeah, there's a ton of them,
billion libraries, so he can just be like, all right, we'll just drive a little bit further today and go to this library. He's like, because I don't want this nosy librarians to ask too many questions. And I'm like, part of me kind of wishes that a librarian would. Like,
we see everything.
Yeah, I was like, you know, we do make small talk with like patrons, and I'm like, and especially little kids, like our branch is very small.
100%. If I had seen this child, and one of the first things out of my mouth would have been like, and who is this with you? Is this dad? Is this grandpa? Who is this?
We do that all the time. And, you know, especially like, I don't know if he got Jocelyn a library card or not, but like, you know, we would have definitely like asked, is this mom? Is this dad? Because you got to have like somebody kind of legally in charge of your library card. That would have been actually really hysterical if that's how they would have cracked the case, but
right. Well, with all this other shit happening, I'm not surprised that probably did happen, but I mean, like, the police raided the house next door.
I know.
Like, there have been so many close calls, so many near misses, essentially,
and especially like just so many, like, the obvious suspect in so many things. Like, all they had to do was go, especially, they didn't know about Michelle, right? Michelle did not have anybody looking for her. Like, we didn't have that.
Right.
But you had people actively looking for Amanda and Gina. All you would have had to do is been like, hey, who do these girls know? Oh, these girls are friends with these, like,
what do they all have in common? Oh, one family of children has like covered all of them. Oh, and you were also friends with another like girl who went missing a long time ago that nobody ever really looked for. Interesting. And
then on top of that, like, who is connected to all of those siblings? Oh, this abusive father who has like a record, of, like a medical record of like hurting his ex-wife. Like, why was this never covered? Like, why was this never like completely like never? He was never an active suspect.
I think part of it, because this like registered something in my brain, is when his ex-wife, when the mother of his children like passed away, like he went to the funeral, but he was so shitty at the funeral, and like everyone was pissed that he was there.
Right.
Like he like wasn't like sorry that she was dead. They like knew how poorly he treated her. Yes. And like how he physically abused her. And then like this dumbass has the audacity to like walk up to her coffin and be like, well, she could cook. God.
And then he takes a picture with his shitty cell phone.
I would have whooped his ass if I had been his, like, I'm not saying that they should have. I'm not faulting anyone. I'm saying me personally, Britta, would have jumped this motherfucker if I heard that come out of his mouth at like my family member's casket. I'd have been like, you're fucking dead.
Like, I've actually been to, well, this is a story for another day. I was going to say, I've actually been to a very tense funeral before.
Yeah.
And
so have I.
Funerals really don't, I mean, it's a place of mourning. It doesn't bring the best out in people, but sometimes you're just like, why'd you go? Why'd you go? You were clearly not wanted there. And then he's like sad that his ex-wife passed away, and he like emotionally dumps on Amanda and talks about how sad he is that she's like gone. And I'm just like, she's not your friend, buddy. She's not your therapist. She's literally a woman you were holding captive. Like, she doesn't want to talk to you. And I do think it's admirable. Amanda does talk about, you know, she said, like, if I had the opportunity to kill him, I would have done it, no hesitation, even though that is Jocelyn's father. But she said that he did treat Jocelyn well. He had kind of a new lease on life, and like treating her, like taking her out and stuff like that, and being proud of her, and
taking like home videos of her so that she would have these to look back on when she was like older, and like taking pictures and things like that, and
really just kind of like acting like a good dad. I'm not saying he was, but just acting like a good dad. So Amanda said, I did have this emotional connection of like, that is my child's father. She's like, but I did not love him. I did not care for him. But she's like, I did tolerate him more. And so it was like light levels of like Stockholm syndrome, which she
like talks about that too, because she was talking about the one kid who had been like kidnapped, and it was on like an America's Most Wanted or something like that she had watched, where it was in like the 90s, like he had been kidnapped and he had like Stockholm syndrome, and like she was just like, I know what that is. Like I don't have that. Like I still very much want to leave here and want to see him punished for this, and like do not like want to be with him. Like, I don't care for him, but like,
right. And then when Jocelyn is born, she has kind of this where she's like, oh, like I do have some emotional connection to him, like, but if he died tomorrow, I would not be sad.
Yeah.
But it was only because of Jocelyn, not because of anything else.
Right. And I mean, this is the only life Jocelyn has known. Right. Like, to her, like, I mean, when she gets older, she starts to kind of realize, like, this is not how people, like, how other people live. But, like, that's the only life she's ever known. Like, that's her dad. She loves her dad. So, like, I'm also not going to fault her. Like, that she's a baby. Like, that's her dad. He treats her well. Like,
and she eventually gets to the point, like, she's in there long enough that, like, Amanda's like, she's supposed to start kindergarten. Yes. So they do set up her room kind of like a classroom, and she wakes up early and has her do kindergarten like every day.
She teaches the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes. And the alphabet, and she has Castro gets a hold of like worksheets, and like he finds stuff at like thrift stores and stuff like that. And they essentially set up like a little makeshift classroom, and Amanda follows the Cleveland Public Schools school calendar because that's who Ariel Castro works for.
Yep.
And she follows their school calendar, so she takes the breaks and stuff the same days, and then she follows that and has Jocelyn go through school, which is pretty amazing.
And they start doing like exercises every day so that they're doing like jumping jacks and stuff like that.
Right, because Amanda's like, I need to get stronger. Michelle and Gina also start going through that as well. Like at some point they're like, if there's ever an opportune time, they are so skinny. They both realize they've lost a lot of weight. And they are like, we need to like get a little bit stronger, because they're like, we're not going to be able to overpower him. Like, he easily has 100 pounds on like most of us. They also, at some point, when there's like a summer break, Amanda is able to go outside with Jocelyn for the first time, but she has to wear this like, they like all go outside, and he takes the same kiddie pool that she gave birth in. I was like, this fucker.
And he didn't clean it out because he's so disgusting.
Are like less than $10. Go buy a new goddamn kiddie pool. So he takes the kiddie pool and he puts it in like, it sounds like a truck bed, and then like fills it up with water, and they have to sit low and they're so short that they just sit in the truck bed and they can't be seen, but they're still wearing like these ridiculous wigs and sunglasses. And Amanda is given like bikini bottoms, but she has to wear a regular shirt, and then they're sitting in the truck bed playing in the kiddie pool.
Yeah.
And Amanda said it was nice because it was the first time she'd been outside like for hours.
Yes.
For like the first time, but they're still stuck in the backyard. I'm like, what kind of neighbors do you guys have in this like?
Well, at one point nobody was living on the one side. Right. Like those neighbors had moved out, and then like again,
I know
it's just kind of a mind your own business situation.
I live in the suburbs far too much because I got like on my street, definitely make fun of like at least one of the elderly ladies. I'm like, she would know what's up. Like, because
I mean, Beth, I literally, when I lived in Philly, my roommate and I helped our neighbors across the street who were like, they absolutely 100% are like selling drugs out of that apartment and have substance abuse issues, like no question in our minds. They were like, can you help us drag this mattress down to the dumpster over there? And we did, and when they tossed it in, there was blood all over the back of it, and we were like, did we just participate in covering up a murder or something? Or was this like we were like shooting heroin and we were like, we bled on the mattress situation? So like, there's a lot of mind your own business type shit that happens in cities.
That's true.
And then we were just like, my God, I do not think I will ever feel clean again. Like,
that's true. Actually, mattress is a good segue to like the next point. So eventually, after they're unchained and after he takes the box spring from Michelle and Gina's bed and gives it to Amanda, and then I think Amanda needed
she got a new mattress.
So he gives Gina and Michelle
a box spring that he found like on a curb,
and a new mattress, because otherwise they were just laying like on the mattress on the floor, and it was not comfortable. Well, then Gina starts to get itchy, and it's summer, so it's hot as shit in their room. And Gina gets really itchy, and she has all these little bumps on her like body, and she looks at Michelle and she's like, what is this? And Michelle's like, at
first they're like, chicken pox, and she's like, no, I had chicken pox.
Yeah,
and she's like, measles.
And then Amanda is like, GTFO, stay away from me and Jocelyn. Now, Amanda did have a part of this new mattress that was just, they were told it was a new mattress, but they're like, he definitely just pulled it outside from somewhere. Like, from somebody's, like, curb.
Right.
But Amanda had requested put like cellophane or something, like something to cover the
like a plastic tarp or something, and like duct tape it.
Because she was like, I don't want germs. Very smart of her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then a few days passed. She's like, Gina's worried about it. She's still getting covered in bumps. And then Michelle wakes up and is also covered in bumps.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, ah! And then she sees
one of my worst
bed
nightmares.
Bugs,
yeah,
like crawling on her arm.
Yes.
And she grabs it. She doesn't kill it. She puts it on like tape and like shows Amanda like, oh my god, we have bed bugs.
Mm-hmm.
And his solution to that, it was like, well, Amanda doesn't have bed bugs, and they just tape the thing and just make them deal with the he gives her a rash cream, which does absolutely fuck all with it, because that's not how you take care of bed bug bites. So they had bed bugs at some point. And I'm sure they never fully got rid of them, because
you can never get rid of them.
So
unless you like bug bomb your entire house.
Yes.
And then throw out stuff. Like you're not getting rid of them.
So he put a plastic tarp on their bed and duct taped it and was like, yeah, it'll be fine. I'm like, oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
And it was after this time. So Michelle, at this point too, she has a food allergy.
Yes.
And she's actually allergic to, I thought this was a not common food allergy. She's allergic to mustard.
It's actually, I know quite a few people who are allergic to mustard, and I think it's like becoming more prevalent.
That's wild.
Mustard and sunflower.
Well, I knew about sunflower because when people are allergic to peanut butter,
yes,
sunflower butter is like usually the substitute.
Yes.
But because people aren't used to eating it, their body's like, hey, well, what are we doing?
There's also, I mean, it's also quote unquote healthier in terms of oils, and so they keep putting it in like everything now, and so more people are discovering that they're allergic to it.
Right.
So like both of them are like weirdly becoming more prevalent.
So she would always request, because 90% of the food they were eating was fast food, like old sandwiches he would buy. So she would always like, if you buy me like a hamburger, because that's usually what they put mustard on, get it without mustard or else I will die.
Mm-hmm.
Very allergic to it. Well, the one day he didn't do that and she ate it and she's like, it's probably, she scraped it off.
No.
And she's like, it'll probably be okay. And she thought she was going to die.
That's so scary.
Because she like swelled up and she was swollen for days, like over a week. And Gina like took care of her while it was happening and was like, you gotta make it, you're gonna make it, and like telling her like, think of your son. And that was her point of like hope, was like, when I get out of here I will be able to see my son and I will live for him. And it's just so sad because this all was happening, like the bed bug thing happened, and then a little while later the way it was written in, like, there's not specific dates in Michelle's book, so it's
just
hard
sort
to
of
put,
like a loose form of like things that happen.
Yes.
So you don't necessarily know if they happen in that order or if it's just kind of like, well, this made me think of this other thing.
Yes. So around the same time, I don't know if it was the exact same time or not, but so they're still living day by day in this hellhole, and Jocelyn is at this point the highlight of their time, and really for Castro, that's kind of the highlight of his time too. He's saying he's not assaulting them, but he definitely was still assaulting them like daily. But they are getting to the point, and Jocelyn's getting to the point where she's asking more questions, and she knows that some of these things are like not normal, and all she wants to do is she wants to play outside more, and she wants to essentially just be out of the house, and she like cannot wait to like for her dad to get home so he can be like taking her out places. And Amanda feels terrible about this because like they are trapped in one tiny room all day until like that's 8 hours. That's majority of their day. But then while that is going on, I know Gina's mom is continuing, like anytime she can, she is continuing like they're going to Cavs games and stuff like that.
She's still putting up like flyers of Gina everywhere.
And oh god. And then the one day Castro comes home and says, "I met your mom today." And she's like, "Yeah." And Gina's like, "Okay." And then he's like, "Yeah, I took a flyer from her." And it's a flyer of Gina, and he took a flyer from her. Like, and then Gina kept it. Yes, Gina's like, "Can I have it?" And she decorated it.
Yeah. There's another near miss in the summer of 2012 where there's another tip from police that a guy in prison says that he killed Amanda and buried her. So they start digging and looking for her, and it's all over the news, and like everyone in the neighborhood is out, and it's like 2 blocks from the house, West 30th and Wade Avenue. And it's like a multi-day search happening here, and the news is just covering it like around the clock, and they're seeing their family members, and they're seeing like Amanda's aunt is there and Gina's parents are there, and like all he sees is like, "Oh, my brother Pedro's there," and like,
that kills me. His brother was there, and his brother was like talking shit on the news too about like how, "Oh, this is a waste of manpower." And I'm like, you're not wrong, but they're it's so close,
right? And then Amanda's sister's on there, and she's like I'm not giving up hope. Like, just because we didn't find her, like she's still out there. Like, I'm not gonna ever give up. And they find out that Amanda's grandma, her mom's mom, has passed away, and that her dad, who had like moved back to Tennessee when she was a kid, is in critical condition in the hospital, but she doesn't know why. And then this piece of shit is just like, "Well, it's about time he died, right? Like, it's about time he croaked." And she's like, "You are so fucked up." And he's like, "Yeah, I guess I am cold-hearted." Like, so stupid. And then they're thinking like this is the second time this has happened, and again, like the cops are so close to us, and like nobody comes to find us. Like, is that it? Like, is that as close as it's ever gonna get, and we're just gonna like die here? Like,
right.
How many times is this gonna keep happening to us? He also would get on the internet, and
he eventually catches up with the 21st century, and he gets a smartphone, and he gets like Facebook, and he gets the internet.
And he like will let them use, like, Amanda can use the internet with him, but like he keeps the keyboard so that they can't like access the computer without it. They like look up JC Dugard, who had also been kidnapped when she was also very young. She was like walking either home, I think she was walking to she missed the bus or something, and she's like walking to a bus stop to get to school, and she was abducted and held captive, and also had a child while she was being held captive. And so Amanda was like, "Well, let's look up her and like see like how she's doing or whatever." And he would not let Jocelyn be anywhere near the computer to see things. And so he would like send her out of the way. And then he was just like, "Oh, well, that guy was crazy." Like when they're reading about her captor, and he's just like so fucking oblivious and delusional. Like, "Oh, well, we're different. Like, that's not the same thing at all.
We are a family. We're a made family."
Yes. And he's just like, "Jocelyn, don't ever get in a car with someone you don't know."
Wanted to throttle him.
And then Amanda's just like, this is me. Like, this is the same story. And he's like, "Well, yeah, I mean, because you both had kids." And she's like, "No, like this whole thing is the same." And he's like, "Well, I mean, she wrote a book. Are you gonna write a book about this?" And she's like, I mean, maybe. And he's like, "Well, are you gonna tell the truth? Or are you gonna say that you had like bad feelings for me? Because if you don't, like, you shouldn't even write it. It won't be true." And she's just like, "Oh, I'm gonna tell them the full fucking truth. I'm not gonna lie."
Yeah. Oh my god. It made me so angry.
So he eventually finally fucking gets fired.
Yes. And they were waiting for this, and he was waiting for this too. Like, he purposely said he wanted to get fired so that he could collect unemployment. Like, he was like, I had been like angling to get fired. And I was like, dude, what the fuck? So immediately upon his firing, they're like, great, now he's home all day.
Right.
But he does start taking Jocelyn out more and stuff like that. And then for somebody who, he's always like, I was a victim and I lived in an abusive household. And he like says his mother was like a terrible human. He visits her a lot. And that's actually how they get a lot of their food, is he takes home a lot of like leftovers from his mom's house. So they eat a lot of like rice and beans. And he essentially like is going over there, but he refuses to take Jocelyn over there because he doesn't want his mom asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, he actually does meet up with his Angie. And it's like he wants to tell, and she's like, it's like he wanted to tell me, like they're having lunch. And she was like, who's that like little girl? And it's like on the tip of it. He's like, well, it's my girlfriend's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like on the tip. And she's like, well, she looks kind of like Emily, who's his other daughter.
Right.
He's like, no. Like, that's my, and so he keeps like really mum. She's like, but I just thought he wanted to tell me something.
She said that he kept like when you like open your mouth to say something and then you shut it and like you don't say anything. And then she kept pushing it and she's like, well, did you get like a DNA, like a paternity test? Because like if you, like, she looks a lot like one of your kids. Like if you have another kid running around, like I need to know. Like if that's my sister, I need to know.
Mm-hmm.
And he like got pissy about it.
Right.
And he also, with Amanda, Gina, and Michelle at home, is starting to more often like talk about like, it'll go from like, oh, well, like we're all a happy family to like, well, one day, like, what do you think they're gonna call me, like, after all of this is over? Like, do you think I'm gonna have, like, a nickname or something? And they're like, clearly he's starting to see that, like, this is gonna end at some point.
Right. He said, eventually I have to figure out a way to get you guys out of here. But he's like, I think it's just gonna end in a shootout.
Which is what he wants, because he doesn't want to go to jail.
No, he's like, I think I would rather go down, like, fighting and getting killed that way. Which I'm like, buddy, like, what the fuck?
Because he's a fucking coward.
Yes.
That's what it is. So that was, like, 2012. They have Thanksgiving. They have, like, about as normal of a Thanksgiving as you can have in this fucked up situation that they're in, where they, like, got, like, turkey legs, and, like, Jocelyn watched the parade on TV, and they, like, put little, like, turkeys and stuff around. They get through, like, Christmas.
They have a fairly normal Christmas as well, where Jocelyn's like able to have like a birthday party.
Yes,
I say that with like right, the loosest of terms.
And then we get to spring of 2013. So May 6th, 2013, he leaves the house,
and this is normal for him to leave. He was going over his mother's for like lunch and like hanging out with his family.
Mm-hmm.
What is not normal is he forgot to lock the door.
Well, the first thing that Amanda notices is that her bedroom door is unlocked.
Yes.
And Jocelyn comes running up the stairs yelling that he's gone and she can't find him. And so Amanda's like, well, that's weird. Like, he always locks me, Gina, and Michelle in when he leaves the house. So, like, he's got to still be in the house somewhere.
Right. And so they're, like, afraid to move.
Well, because they're not allowed to go downstairs.
Right.
Unless he takes them down there. So she's like, well, I can't help her go look for him because that's, like, top of the list rules, and he's gonna chain me up again if I break this. So she's like, well, go look out in the backyard and see if he's out there, like, working on a motorcycle or a car or something. So Jocelyn, like, loved playing dress up, so she puts on, like, one of the wigs, and she goes and looks out the back window, which was locked from the outside, and she's, like, looking around, and Amanda was, like, listening and hearing her running around downstairs, and she comes back up, and she's like, he's not there. Like, he probably went to, like, McDonald's without me, or to the library without me,
and she's
Mom.
she's like mad that he, like, left. She's like, his blue car is gone.
Yes.
And Amanda's like, holy shit. This is it. She creeps like down the stairs because she still doesn't trust it and she's afraid. She's like so deathly afraid, and she's like, I can't go out the back door because there's an alarm on there. And like, here's the thing, I'm like, I don't know, like, did he actually rig up an alarm that actually works, or did he just say that he rigged?
I don't know. I think he probably just said it because he's like got them so terrified that like they're not going to test it.
Right. And I was like, I don't blame her, right?
Oh, no, not at all.
Like, so she's like, I can't go out the back door, but the front door doesn't have an alarm on it. And she's like, I've never been, like, she's at this point so close to the front door. She's like, in the decade that I've lived here, I've never even like been out the front door. So she goes to do the front door, but it's locked.
Right.
And she's like, oh God, like, how do I? So she's like banging on it, and she eventually is able to open it up enough that she sticks her like arm out, and she gets the attention of the neighbor.
While all this is happening, upstairs, Gina and Michelle hear Jocelyn running around.
Yes.
And they're like, they hear her saying like his car's gone and he's gone, and they're like, thinking the same things, like, okay, shit, like, is this it? Is it go time? Should we make a run for it? No, it's probably a trap. Like, he's fucking with us. I hear Amanda going down there, like, let
Amanda get in trouble.
Right, let Amanda, like, test the waters, and if someone's gonna get punished, like, it's her and it's not us, and, like, we're just gonna wait, because I don't blame them. This is, like, terrifying to them. So they're, like, they're listening, but they're not quite at the point to, like, go and also try to get downstairs. And Amanda was thinking the same thing of like, I'm not going to tell them because if this is like a trap, like then it's just me. It's not everyone. Right. It's just me. Right. And so she gets the attention of this guy. Like he comes out on the porch and she's like, can you open the door? Like, can you help me get out? And he isn't like really saying anything. Like he's like, oh, well, like, it's
he's
locked.
Like looking at her like this strange woman is
right,
like...
and she keeps yelling like, help me, I'm Amanda Berry. And so he starts to walk away, and there's like an old lady on the sidewalk, and she's like waving her finger and going like, no, like don't go up there, don't go mess with her.
I'm like, man, mind out of all the
and
days
so she's
to mind
like
your
waving
business.
She's like waving for the guy to like, no, come off the porch, like come over here, get away. And so Amanda just starts screaming louder, and Jocelyn's down there, and so obviously like her mom's freaking out. She doesn't know what's going on. So she starts crying.
Jocelyn's crying, which I'm like, fair.
And then another guy comes by who now we know is Charles Ramsey. He's like a taller black guy, and he's like, what's going on? And he's asking the old lady like, what is happening? Like, what's going on? And she's like, well, she's saying she's Amanda Berry, but she's not Amanda Berry because Amanda Berry died like years ago. And she's just like, oh no, I'm right here in the house, like let me out. So he comes up and he's like, the door's locked, and she's like please, like you gotta help me. So he's like looking at the door, and he's like looking at the bottom of like the door, the panel at the bottom, right? And he kicks it, and he's like, kick it out. Like, and he's like, finish kicking it out, mama. And
she's like cheap aluminum. Yeah. And she did not think about that. And she's like, oh my God.
And she's just like, well, why aren't you helping? Like, why are you making me do it? So she starts like kicking, because she ran upstairs and got her high tops on before she starts doing this. And she smashes out enough of it to crawl through.
Which I was like, they're so goddamn tiny. Yeah. Like, they're able to do that.
And then pulls Jocelyn out. And is like starts screaming, I need a phone. So he's like, okay, like I got a phone at my house. And he lives right next door. Right,
and then she's like,
She runs after him, but then she's like standing in the front door and is like, this house is creepy. Yeah. Did I just run into like an even worse situation? Luckily, no. Like he calls 911.
He's just got a trash house. So
this shit, this is what pisses me off when she calls 911. Yeah. And I'm just gonna read this out of like, because this is so infuriating. So the operator picks up, and first thing she says is like, help me, I'm Amanda Berry. Do you need police, fire, or ambulance? I need police. Okay, and what's going on there? I've been kidnapped and I've been missing for 10 years, and I'm here. I'm free now. Okay, what's your address? 2207 Seymour Ave. 2207 Seymour. It looks like you're calling me from 2210. And she's like, what? And it looks like you're calling me from 2210. And she's like, I'm across the street. I'm using the phone. Okay, we'll stay there and talk to the police when they get there. And she was like, what? And he's like, okay, talk to the police when they get there. Okay, hello? Yeah, talk to the police when they get there. Okay, are they on their way? I need them now. We're going to send them as soon as we get a car open. No, I need them now before he gets back. All right, we're sending them, okay? Okay, I mean, like, who's the guy that went out? His name's Ariel Castro. All right, how old is he? He's like 52. All right, and I'm Amanda Berry. I've been on the news for the last 10 years. Okay, I got that, dear. And you say, what was his name again? Ariel Castro. And is he white, black, or Hispanic? He's Hispanic. What's he wearing? I don't know, because he's not here right now. That's why I ran away. Well, when he left, what was he wearing?
Jesus Christ.
And then, instead of staying on the phone, which is what they're supposed to do, they end the call. And she said it's maybe like 3 minutes before the first police car gets there.
My God, it's probably the longest 3 minutes of her life.
And before it even stops, like, she just runs at the cop who's driving, screaming her name. And so they ask, is there anybody else inside? She's like, yes, there's 2 more girls in there. And they just bolt for the house. And then she's like, can you put us in the car in case he comes back? Like, she's like got this forethought of like, I can't be on the street because like he'll like snatch us back inside. Yes. And like cops are coming out everywhere. They're like, people are coming out of houses. Some of the cops are breaking the door down.
This is giving me goosebumps.
I know. Someone comes and takes her and Jocelyn out of a police car and over to an ambulance. And she finally realizes like we're finally safe. He can't get us.
And while that is happening inside, so they have their TV on, and they heard Jocelyn running around. They heard Amanda. They really don't hear much. They hear the banging of the door,
right? Because you have to remember, he also has like all of their windows and stuff boarded up because he didn't want anyone to be able to hear them screaming from inside. But this is also insulating them from outside sounds.
Right. So they have no idea what's going on, and
they've heard banging. They've heard Jocelyn running around and crying. And now they hear like someone coming up the stairs.
They hear someone banging on the door.
Yes.
And they're hiding. Like, Michelle tells Gina, like, let's hide. Because they think that Castro sent someone to fuck with them. And so they say, police, open up. And they don't open up right away. And then they say, like, Cleveland police. And then they're like, okay. So Gina opens the door. And then they see that it is cops.
Yes.
And it's like a man and a female police officer.
Yes.
They immediately, Michelle, like, throws herself, like, monkey hugs the cop, crying.
And yelling, you saved us.
You saved us. And I'm just like, she's so tiny that, like, I can't even imagine.
Like, he, like, tried to put her down, and she was like, no, please don't. Like, please don't put me, like, don't let me go.
Right. She's just like, get us the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
So
he asks Gina, well, what's your name? And she says, I'm Gina DeJesus. And he like looks at her like, bullshit. And she's like, my name is Georgina DeJesus, because that's her full name. And he's like, holy shit, we found them. Like, we've been looking for you for a really long time. And then they start asking questions about, like, do you know who kidnapped you? What does he look like? Is that him? And they're like pointing to a picture on Amanda's wall, and she's like, no, that's Amanda's dad, but there's pictures downstairs on the fridge. And Gina's like showing them this, and Michelle's like down there already and like pointing at, like, this is him, like, that's the guy. And they're like, this makes me so sad, but they're like, can we go upstairs and get our stuff?
Yeah,
like, they have so few things, and they're like, can we go upstairs? So they like take like her drawings and letters, because she's like, I want to give these to my mom and dad, and like some of the clothes that I sewed myself, because she like taught herself to sew and started like tailoring things and mending them. But she's like, I don't have time because they're trying to shove me out. So like, I took my drawings and some of that stuff.
Right. And Michelle wasn't allowed. There was quite a bit of stuff they weren't allowed to take because they said police were like,
evidence.
This is evidence.
I know.
So they were afraid they weren't going to get like Michelle and Amanda. It sounded like all kind of kept diary-esque things of sorts.
Yes.
And they would write on not just like, they were given notebooks, but they would write not just on notebooks, but like on wrappers,
McDonald's bags, Wendy's bags, napkins, whatever they could find.
Whatever they could find.
Yeah. So they get all three of them into the ambulance with Jocelyn and are kind of like reunited here. And Gina's like, oh shit, like we kind of thought like you got hurt or like something happened. And there's an FBI agent whose name is Andy Burke who comes in and is like, you all look like exactly the same. You just are like so much thinner. But we've been looking for Amanda and Gina for like for so long.
No idea that Michelle was there.
Yeah. And they question them a little bit and they're saying, okay, so you're really Amanda Berry? And she's like, yeah. And they're like, and who's this little girl? And she says, this is my daughter, Jocelyn. And the like female police officer who was there questioning her was like, so this is his daughter? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, and that's really Gina DeJesus? And Gina's like, yep, that's me. They like go to the hospital, and I remember when this happened, like I remember vividly that photo of Beth and Amanda in the hospital, and like they're smiling and leaning over the beds because Jocelyn's in the picture too, but she's a little kid, so they like blur her face out. Mm-hmm. But like I still vividly remember that photo on the news when this happened. I also remember hearing all of these police sirens going to Seymour Avenue when this happened, and we were like, what is going on?
Right.
But like, yeah, I just remember that. And then in the memoir, they're like descriptions of being reunited with like the family that they like have is just like, I like bawled my eyes out.
And poor Michelle didn't have like family to come get her. And Amanda and Gina were able to leave after like 2 days. Michelle had to stay, I think, almost a week because she did not realize like the reason she felt so shitty was not only did she have an allergic reaction that almost killed her, but she had like a stomach infection. Yeah. And she's like, had I been there any longer, she wouldn't have made it. I would have died. And she had permanent damage to her face from all of the physical abuse. Yes. And so they had to like assess everything and like essentially get her so that she's not gonna like die from a bacterial infection. So she was just like, I had no idea. Like she didn't realize, like, and I was like, well, it's one of those things that like, you know, when you're living in this constant state of fear and stuff, you probably don't realize how shitty you feel all the time. You think that's normal. Right. And then like only to realize, oh my God, out of all the things that would have taken me out, who would have thought a bacterial infection was going to do it? Yeah. So they obviously put out like an APB for Castro. They do find his Miata. His like brothers are in it. They end up like arresting his brothers as well as him. They arrest him in a McDonald's parking lot. Yeah. They eventually released his brothers because they realized he is such a smarmy motherfucker when he gets, pardon my French, but don't pardon it. He is so smarmy when this is happening. Like he's just smiling and like acting like everything's fine. And then, like, a buddy of his who's a cop came in and was like, hey, what are you doing here? And he's like, I did a bad thing. And he's, like, so nonchalant. Yeah. To the point where the friend's like, dude, I'm a cop. Like, you gotta watch what you fucking say to me. And he gets quiet for a second, but he was like, see you around. And this guy's like, yeah, see you in hell. Like, yeah. You piece of shit. Scumbag. The day after he was arrested, so this is May 7th, they searched the house and found in total 90 feet of chains. They found padlocks, deadbolts, clock radio, and wires rigged up as alarms connected to the front and back doors. In a drawer in the kitchen, they found a handwritten note, which this is so stupid. God, fuck this guy. It had a heading at the top that said, confessions and details, and he fucking spelled confessions wrong. He put like, it's like possessive, like confessions, they belong to it, and it was 4 pages long on notebook paper with like a bunch of fucking misspellings and scratched out words, and like he dated it and like put the time of like when he like abducted people, right? And he wrote it shortly after Gina's abduction. Yeah, so he had this like exit plan this entire time. And he's basically, he details about, like, I was a victim, and I was a victim of, like, abuse, and I was sexually, I was molested as a child in Puerto Rico, and I've always...
The fucking audacity as well to be like, oh, well, it wasn't just me with my ex-wife. Like, she hit me, so I hit her back. And, like, it was bad, but, like, whatever.
It was very, and just delusional of just, like, you know, I never, like, assaulted these women. This was always consensual. This was always, and I remember on the news too, like, this was being misreported, like, because they found this and they aired it, and they were just like, yeah, it was like, and I'm like, wait a minute. There's no way that this was, like, consensual.
There's no fucking way this was consensual. Least of all, because, like, when you're a minor, it's not fucking consensual.
No.
You're a minor. It doesn't matter. Your prefrontal lobe was not developed in any of them. Like, all of them were under 25.
So it was just 4 pages of bullshit, really.
And then at the end, like, this motherfucker wrote that he planned to let them go, quote unquote, when I feel I've arranged everything so my family knows what to do after I take my life. And he said he had $10,000 in a bank account and another $11,000 in cash hidden inside his washing machine. And said, I would like this money to go to the victims, for they deserve every red cent of it. Again, I apologize to everyone this whole ordeal has affected. And then, like, apologized to his kids and was like, just because you think you might know someone, don't get in their vehicle. This was the case of Amanda and Gina. He wrote to his ex-wife, who is at this point deceased, and was like, please do your best to ensure my babies are safe. If possible, move far away. And then was like, I'm sick mentally. And I'm like, fuck this dude. Like, truly, just fuck this guy. What a piece of absolute trash.
I just, you know, like I said, obviously, we understand and empathize with people that have mental illness, but mental illness is not the same as choosing violence time and time again, and choosing, like, assault time and time again, and choosing to capture people against their will. It's not the same.
Right. So, like, so many terrible things that happen in Ohio, this did change some things, and some good kind of did come out of it.
Yes.
Like, almost immediately, like, the day after the arrest, like, while they're searching the house, they also scoured the neighborhood just in case, like, maybe there's accomplices or clues. And across the street and 3 doors down, there lived a person named Elias Acevedo Sr., who was a convicted sex offender who'd moved in with his mother but failed to register his new address, because you have to do that when you move and you're on the sex offender database. And so they put him in jail for that. And while he was incarcerated, the police linked his DNA to an unsolved 1993 rape. And the further they looked into that case, the more they also began to suspect that he was involved in the unsolved disappearance of Christina Adkins, who I had mentioned earlier when talking about Gina's mom, who was 18 and pregnant when she went missing in January of 1995. So, encouraged by the fact that, like, these 3 women had been found alive so many years later, Andy Burke, that FBI agent that I mentioned, started looking into a bunch of other cold cases and noting, like, inconsistencies in the police reports about Christina's disappearance. And one witness seemed to have given a false name and date of birth. And after pulling those files and re-interviewing people, he realized that that was Acevedo. So Acevedo finally confessed to killing her, as well as Pamela Pemberton, who was a 30-year-old woman whose body was found in 1994. And then he led them to an area off I-90 near downtown Cleveland and pointed to a manhole cover. And when they lifted it and looked down into the storm sewer, they found Christina's skull.
Which, that means that manhole, that has not been touched in, like, 30 or 20 years. Fucking wild.
So, like, devastating that, like, we could not have the same ending to Christina's story or Pamela's story, but at least there is some closure finally after so many years of not knowing what happened to them.
That they're like, oh, we should actually investigate some of the, like, maybe we're going about this the wrong way.
Yeah. So he ended up, Castro, I like don't even want to like say his name because he's such a piece of shit. He did eventually stand trial. He was found guilty of 3 counts of rape, which in Ohio is like a minimum of 10 years, but up to a maximum of a life sentence.
Yeah, he had 937 against him, and then he said he was guilty of all of them. And then the judge, at first they were like not gonna make this like a public spectacle, but then the one prosecutor for Cuyahoga County said, no, we need to, because I want other people who are like him to understand that we take this very seriously, and like you will get the worst possible case of like punishment. So Castro ended up getting like 1,000 years in jail, like, which is a life sentence, like no chance of parole. Like and the prosecutors, like, we didn't want him to get a chance to like try to, you know, sway anybody.
Exactly.
And so he eventually is like, they talk about in the memoirs how like he is handcuffed, and when he's being questioned, like, and detained, like he's hungry, so they go to give him like pizza, and he's struggling to eat the pizza in the handcuffs, which is like, buddy, how hard is it? Not that hard. You're making it more difficult. I get it.
Like, usually you're handcuffed and you're also handcuffed to a table, so it's like hard to turn things around, but like,
and then
also
fuck this guy.
That guy.
Yeah, but then each place he goes to, he's like complaining about the conditions he's living in, and he doesn't want to go into Gen Pop.
Well, like, yeah, because he knows his ass would be fucking toast by the end of that first night.
Right. So he's like, don't put me in there. I'm mentally unwell. And he's like, I think I'm suicidal. So they put him in like the detainment of like the separation. So he's not in general population. And it's their job to make sure at this correctional institution that like every 30 minutes they're supposed to be checking on him. But he's claiming that they're like messing with his food, and they're like, so he's like not eating, and then he's like, this is terrible, I have nowhere to go, they won't let me do recreation. I don't know if it was like just, you know, his bullshit saying this, but I do like that there was like a comment of like, well, like, that's not fair that I don't get recreation. And the one guard was just like, you didn't let them girls get outside and do shit. Like, fuck you. Yeah. And so he does not do well. He spirals in his like solitary confinement.
Because he's a fucking coward.
Yes. So he essentially like lays out like little notes and stuff to people, and, you know, they're supposed to be doing wellness checks on him every 30 minutes. They don't do it for like 2 hours. And in the 2 hours that they don't check on him, he essentially is kind of doing his final arrangements of stuff, and then he completes suicide. Now, the one in Michelle Knight's book, she's like, oh, he died of autoerotic asphyxiation.
Well, that was what people had suspected, because he hung himself,
right,
and his pants were found down,
right,
but they don't let you have shoelaces or belts,
right,
or things like that for exactly this reason. So it is also just as logical that he hung himself and was like, he had to hold his pants up when he'd walk around,
right, because he was losing weight.
When he died, he's no longer holding his pants up, so they fell down,
right.
So like, yeah, it could have been one thing, but it just as likely could have been the other.
Right. So when this happened, they all called one another.
Yes.
And were very upset, because they were like, we just wanted him to have the same justice.
Yeah.
Like, we wanted him to be punished
and
jail.
Like, yeah, go through what they went through.
And they're like, we're glad he's like dead, but they didn't get that closure that they wanted of like,
I think it was also Gina who at first like didn't believe that he was actually dead. She's like, this is like him fucking with us again. Like, he probably like had someone inside like just like lie and say that he's dead, and then he's gonna come after us.
It's so sad.
Yes.
And then
I was gonna say they also, I mean, and if you have more to say about like their immediate feelings about that, we can come back to it. But they did tear the house down.
Yes.
Because they didn't want it to become like this gross, like people traveling to come and like watch and like look at the house. And
just like I mean, they do that all the time.
Yes.
Like that's like a weird pastime of people's, is like, let's go to Jeffrey
The murder
Dahmer's
house.
apartment.
Yeah. And I remember like when it first happened, because they did tear the house down, and then they essentially made like a little kind of like public garden over there in like the space for a while of like, let's try to make this like horrible thing like a nice thing. But I do remember that they on Google Maps like blurred it out, and so I was curious to see if it was still that way, and it is, and I'm glad it is. But I did just like check again just to see like did they unblock it, like can you look at it now?
Right,
and I'm glad
it's been over 10 years.
Yes, it is still. I'm glad it is still like blurred out on there, so like you can't even go on Google Maps and like look at the lot. So that's, in my opinion, a good thing.
And so Gina and Amanda decided not to go and see the house being torn down. Michelle did, and she released yellow balloons as like a sign, and I think she did do some public speaking. Michelle was also there at the trial, and Gina and Amanda were not, but they had somebody represent them.
Yes.
And I think that was Michelle's kind of way of like coping and going through, so
like a catharsis.
Yes.
Like she needed to be there to like know for herself.
And so Amanda does talk about that. She's like, I think we're just different people. So she did not really, after they like are essentially reunited, and Michelle does like see her brother in the hospital, but her brother's like, I had no idea any of this was happening to you. I didn't know what happened to you. But Michelle's going through her own journey because she was trying to like, she wanted to find out what happened to her son, but unfortunately for her, she's not able to be reunited with her son because he was adopted. They're very, very protective once he was adopted of like,
I think the nature of it was that it was also like a closed adoption, so like they don't release that information. So and again, and we were just talking about this. I think I was talking about this with somebody, and we were talking about how also with adoptions, like, you know, there's literally nothing that says like if you adopt a child that you have to tell them they're adopted. And like, you know, some people are like ethically like, yeah, like they deserve to know that. I want them to know like whatever I can tell them about like their biological family or like whatever, I will. And other people are like, no, I absolutely don't want my kid to know they're adopted. I just want them to think that we're a family and that's what they know, and we'll keep it that way. So they were like, well, like, wouldn't that like kid like go looking for her or something? Like maybe he doesn't know. He
was 2, so it's like, what do you remember at the age of 2? I don't remember. Not a lot. Much. Like, I don't, you know, like, and especially if they adopted and they all kind of look like they would be related. Like, okay, yeah, but 2 at this point, Michelle's child is an adult,
right?
Which is wild,
right?
Time is terrible.
Yes.
But so, you know, maybe he'll find out, maybe he'll never know. But unfortunately, if he does find out, he may not find out like he may not find out from like, I don't know.
It does a spit in the tube kind of thing, and he matches with her on like Ancestry or something like that. Maybe. Like, I mean, stranger things have happened.
Yeah, you feel so bad because then he'll be like, Google, and then be like, what the fuck?
Right. Well, and that's also the thing too, that like, I wonder, I mean, her name is always going to be tied to it in terms of Michelle Knight, but like, as we mentioned in the other episode, Michelle did change her name.
Yeah.
She goes by Lily Rose Lee now. And so like at some point down the line, like, you know, if she did join Ancestry, I don't know if she's on there. I know she's got an Instagram, but if she did join like that, like maybe it wouldn't even be under that name. So like maybe it wouldn't even connect in that way, you know?
It's hard telling.
There was like a quite a bit of like news coverage about them and interviews like last year, because it had been 10 years since they had escaped, and they kind of checked in with everybody. So Michelle / Lily Rose Lee she's written 2 books now. The first one, Finding Me, was like her story about like what happened, this experience that we've kind of been touching on. She also wrote a second book called Life After Darkness, and that's about like her depression and relationships and sort of like moving on and moving forward from this. And she said the whole world had heard the story of how I'd been damaged by a filthy older man. Who would ever want me after that? But through mutual friends on Facebook, she found and married Miguel Rodriguez. So they got married actually on the 3rd anniversary of them escaping. So May 6, 2016. Oh. She has traveled the globe. She's a public speaker. She launched a foundation called Lily's Ray of Hope, and that supports women and girls who are victims of domestic abuse and violence.
The most empowering thing is each of them have propelled kind of this narrative forward of like, what can I do to give back?
Yes. And she does a lot of artwork. That's kind of like her therapy now, is like she like paints and she like makes artwork, and she partnered with a specialty coffee maker, and like they raise money for her foundation by like showcasing her artwork and selling it. And so that like gives resources for these women who are like survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking and child abuse. It gives them resources to like start a new life. So it like provides for them. She also fosters and rescues animals.
That actually does not surprise me.
Yeah. And so she said, God put me on this earth for a purpose, and I believe the purpose was to help animals and humans connect in a special way. They mimic and feel everything that you're going through, so when you're sad and you're distraught, they come up and give you kisses, and they show you how beautiful life truly can be.
I just also like that Michelle's like, get me tatted up after this.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. So I remember she was on the news a few years ago, and they like walked her through, and she had a bunch of like parrots and parakeets that she'd rescued, and like rabbits and stuff. And she was like, all these, she's like, during this time that I was stuck in there, like I saw like him abuse these dogs and like all this stuff, and they were starved and they were beaten and left for dead. And so I'm standing up and I'm being a voice for these precious animals. And I found that when I was helping animals in return, the animals were helping me. Very sweet.
She did talk about maybe having a family one day, but unfortunately she physically cannot anymore.
Yeah.
Gina and Amanda, shortly after being free, were actually invited to the White House for like a gala dinner for a human trafficking like organization to like stop that. And they actually got to sit down with then Vice President Biden, and they did meet like Barack Obama. And they actually got to like talk to them, and they talked to Joe Biden about like their journey and like what happened. And then they had like a whole conversation, and then they were at this gala. And then Amanda, I haven't watched it lately, but I know she was on the local news for the missing. Still,
yeah.
And she does like a missing children segment of
so it is here. Let me go back in my notes. I was gonna jump around a little bit. So it's on Cleveland's Fox 8 station. I wish I could remember what it's called. I had it written down in my other section of notes. It's like anytime there is like a missing child case or something like that, she highlights it and will like have a special segment on the news where it stops, and I can hear her voice in my head right now because I've seen it so many times, where she's like, please stop and take a look at your TV, because they always show a picture and she'll give you details about them. And she's like, I just hope we get the faces of missing people out there and get people looking at them a second or third time and looking at their name, because it's those small things that make a difference and finding them or finding out what happened to them. She is also like raising Jocelyn. Jocelyn has had her Sweet 16 party. And I know. And Amanda said, I'm just so proud of how much she's grown as a person. And she's very caring. And a lot of kids her age are not like that. And I find that she is. The segment on Fox 8 is just called Missing with like Amanda Berry. And she said, I like Michelle, she was like, I was worried I would never find love. Like she was like 16 when this happened. She had like a boyfriend, but it's like a high school boyfriend. She was like, first of all, I never thought I'd be able to trust and love somebody, but also like I'm like in my late 30s. I'm in my mid 30s, and this is my first real boyfriend. So as far as I know, they're still together. The last I had heard, she did find someone and was dating someone, and she was very happy, and she's like, it's just nice to have a normal life. And like I'll never truly have a normal life, and I'm coming to grips with that, but like as long as I can make the best out of it, and I just want to have a normal life for Jocelyn.
Support. They had actually, backtracking a little bit, the city of Cleveland and their like lawyers set up something called the Courage Fund.
Yes.
And they raised, because they wanted, like, even though Castro was like, I'm leaving you all this money, like, go fuck yourself with your $20,000, buddy. They're like, we don't want your money. Like, we don't want your money at all. But then they were like, what do we do? Like, they lost, you know, when you think about it, like a decade, they lost a decade of everything. And then to just think about, like, logistically, like, they lost a decade of working. Like, they lost a decade of just being normal adults and working, even the shitty minimum wage jobs. Like, they lost a decade.
Well, and also, like, they didn't graduate from high school. They didn't have degrees.
Right.
Like, a lot of places, like, you need some kind of, like, high school diploma to get a job. So, like, they had to go and, like, do that. Like, Gina, like, worked with a tutor and finished, like, got her GED. Her high school let her walk like at commencement so that she could still have that like experience of graduating, and gave her like an honorary diploma.
They had to like do all of that. But the Courage Fund was organized, and people like donated, and some people only donated $1, and then you had wealthier people who donated more than that. They split this money amongst Amanda, Jocelyn, Gina, and Michelle, and it was enough money that they were able to like buy a new car or buy like get a house. And in Amanda's case, they actually got a house, and then it was fixed up inside for free. I was like, whew. Like because
it was kind of run down too. Like I think her sister Beth found it like online.
It was through I was going to say Fannie Mae. Yeah, Fannie Mae. Like the investment. Freddie. No, not
Frankie.
Fannie Mae.
It's the guy named one of those where they take foreclosed properties and stuff like that.
Because this was during the fallout of the housing crisis.
Yeah.
Not in this economy today. Man, people trying to get a house today, you would not be getting people like, oh, this house was foreclosed on, but it's still worth like $200,000. Like, no. But they got a house that was it was a foreclosure. Amanda was going to like live in it with her sister, and this investment company quietly like got the house fixed up for them for like free. Like they did it of their own labor, so they were able to live there. And then like Gina, with her portion of the Courage Fund, they were able to like move out. Her and her family moved out to the suburbs, and she got like a little in-law suite where it's like, I'm living with my family but separately. Yeah. And I have my own space, and I have my own bathroom, and I have my own like just suite. I can do whatever I want. And it tickled me because Amanda's like, and when I cook, sometimes I move my pan away from the burner. It's not in the dead center of the burner, because that was one of the things. He would have rules for them cooking and be like, you can't cook that. You can't put your thing to the side. It has to be dead center. And he would call them names all the time. Yeah. And that was one of the things she said. It was very difficult transitioning because like her brother-in-law, who's still around, her brother-in-law called her a dumbass, and that was like a trigger for her where she like started crying, and he's like, oh god, what did I do? And then she didn't realize that like, oh, I have this kind of resolved trauma. Like, you know, I think with any type of thing that's like traumatic because it's happening for so long, like she realizes what are these terrible things, but you don't realize what are going to be like kind of innocuous triggers, right? Like you don't realize until after the things happen what would be an innocuous trigger.
Right. So that, you know, they all kind of went about their different ways of sort of returning back to like a life outside of this like hell that they went through. Like I said, they some of them went through like schooling and finished their GEDs and got degrees or things like that. Gina and her cousin in 2018 started a nonprofit called the Cleveland Family Center for Missing Children and Adults, aka Cleveland Family. And she was like, I want to help families because my family didn't have anything. They didn't get help. My parents didn't have people actually helping them do the flyers and stuff. So we can actually help other families with all of that instead of them having to do this all on their own. She also got involved with the Northeast Ohio Amber Alert Committee. And in the one interview that I had read, the Newburgh Heights police chief was just like, she is such an asset. Like, anywhere in this like 8-county area, we can send a victims advocate specialist along with Gina to meet the family and like provide them support. And so look at this like dope ass professional photo she has. Like, it's such a good picture too. But so she's still involved in helping these families as well. She had to relearn Spanish because like Amanda and Michelle didn't speak Spanish, so she like wasn't speaking it for that entire time she was in there.
Right. And I doubt that he spoke Spanish.
No.
I mean, he spoke Spanish, but I doubt he spoke enough Spanish to her.
She learned how to drive and got her driver's license. Like, these are things that like
right.
you don't really think
about too. And she was like, this was the highlight of, because I can just leave.
Yeah,
I can go to the store and like, and even relearning like, I can go to the store and not buying like the whole grocery store at once. Like, oh, I don't need all this food right now. I can come back later this week.
Yes.
Like, what a radical, to have to go through that mindset every day and relearn that every day.
Yes. So yeah, just little things like that like you don't really think about, you kind of take for granted. And, like, they missed prom, so like Gina's cousin took her to prom, and you know, like learning to drive, getting your driver's license, paying a bill, like, you know. And
Amanda said too, like, learning, like, she's like, I don't take things for granted now.
Yes.
Like, the little things, I just enjoy the little things more.
They like love being able to be outdoors and doing outdoorsy things. Gina and Amanda actually took a trip to Vegas together. But then I didn't think about this until I was reading this like 10 years later, like, how are they doing thing. And they liked traveling a lot. And like, you know, Lily also travels a lot and does public speaking things. So like, they're going out and seeing the world. They're not like confined to this one spot. But then COVID happened and everyone got stuck inside. And I was like, my God, like,
how triggering
I didn't even think
that
about
be?
that. But like, I can't even imagine like the mental gymnastics you'd have to do to like not just completely lose it at that point of like, now I'm stuck inside again.
Right.
Like,
I would say still mental gymnastics, but a caveat, right, is that in COVID, at least you could go in your backyard.
Well, hopefully, like they all like still were in like a situation where they had like a backyard to go to,
right.
You know. But then again, like having that freedom and that control taken away from you a little bit is probably super triggering.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, I'm like, I didn't even think about that. Like, you know, we all went through our own shit during COVID, but just thinking about stuff like that, that's bonkers to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm glad they are thriving. They not only survived, but they are now at this point thriving.
Yes.
And I feel like the impact they have made far exceeds kind of what he did to them, and as it should. And I only hope that, you know, when people read their story, that they realize like they endured so much, and it's such a story of human perseverance and empowerment, and, you know, to go through all of these things and still come out like looking for light and hope. And
yes,
a lot of them turn to religion and God, and I'm like, I don't fault anybody for you got to do what you got to do to help you survive.
Exactly.
So, you know, I wish them nothing but like the best and happiest of lives. I'm like, man, you guys you rescue all those puppies. You rescue all the things you can do.
And also, I mean, I do also kind of feel for like Angie, his other daughter, who like went and tried to like save what she could of her childhood from this house, but also it's like her mom's gone. She finds out her dad did these terrible things,
right?
You know, and so there's those children too, you know, like, and I know Emily had like some mental health things happening, and so it's all of his kids, you know, like they gotta find their own closure and solace with this as well. So I mean, it sucks that one guy was such a piece of absolute shit that like he ruined so many people's lives.
So many, like just a ripple effect of terrible things that happen that, you know, people have to recover from.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like that covers pretty much everything, and
about as up to date as we can on them. Like, you know, I'm sure that this was like kind of a media sensation, unfortunately. So I'm sure that there will be like, you know, news people checking in on them from time to time. And like they all do have these nonprofits and things set up where you can kind of check in on them on your own.
Something that you're interested in, and you know, unfortunately this terrible thing had to happen for changes to happen.
Yes. As
we discussed in a lot of our true crime podcast episodes. But because these changes have happened and because they have these nonprofits, if that's something that you feel passionately about and you are interested in, like, you can check out these organizations and you can help out with them as much as you can, because statistically there are still so many missing children and people.
Right. So there is also the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Their website is missingkids.org. And so they have regional offices. There's usually one in or near like most major cities. I mean, they've been around for 40 years and they're still trying to, like, you know, change how we find these missing children and like the services they can provide for people who are, you know, like victims who are found and recovered or who have survived these things. I don't want to call them victims. I like to call them survivors when they like got out of this. Like I feel like it's more empowering, but
right, because they have found that what they're doing is not effective, and that the people that have survived not necessarily because of police investigations. They've survived because of outside forces, and they're like, well, what can we do to fix this and make it more effective overall?
Exactly. And so on that missingkids.org site, there is a search function where you can search your local area and you can look at like the missing posters that Beth used to watch and look at Walmart and in the stores. So you can search, and they have like a "Have you seen me?" scroll at the bottom of the scene or of the website, so that you can sort of just like take a look and like search near you and see just if like you can get eyes on something. Like Amanda said and like Gina said, like, you know, just that little bit of information helps.
Literally
like
could save somebody's life.
Exactly. Like how many near misses did we talk about where they were so close to them? It, you know, if it just would have been one person who was like, hey, I saw something weird, maybe go check that out. So, you know, it's
be the nosy neighbor.
Exactly. It is a scary world, but also it could be slightly less scarier if we had each other's backs.
Yes. So, on that note, thank you for listening and taking this 2-part journey with us. It was a meaty case, but it's also a decade of 3 young women's lives that we had to, you know, talk about. So, we hope that, you know, you guys think about this information and be kind to one another and be vigilant.
What is it? I feel bad bringing up Kimmy Schmidt right now, but isn't it like the thing where they're like, oh, the amount of murders that happen because women just were too polite. Like, you know what? If someone's being a fucking creep, tell them they're being a fucking creep.
Yeah. And, yeah, I hope that, you guys have a good week, and again, be kind to one another. And I will say thank you again to our spooky sponsor.
Thank you, spooky sponsor.
And before I forget, do check out our socials and please rate us on social media like Facebook and on the actual podcast, the way you listen to us on your podcasting. So Amazon, Apple Podcasts, not Google because that doesn't exist, YouTube, Spotify. Rate us, because if you rate us, then it goes up and then more people can find us and we'll be like, yay. I listen, we do hashtags, but I think they only do so much. The algorithms on all these socials are really messed up now. Right. So I'm just like, who is this actually reaching?
I'm just going to start like walking by strangers' phones and whispering Lake Erie Library Podcast so that it starts like showing it in their feed.
Oh my God, that would be actually kind of hysterical. We could be sneaky and put up like a QR code.
Except there's so many scams with QR codes now that people don't scam them as much.
Yeah,
I think I'm just gonna start walking. It's not creepy at all. I'm just gonna start crouching next to people's pockets where their phones are, and saying like, True Crime Paranormal Podcast, Ohio, Lake Erie Library Podcast, and like letting the phones do the work.
Oh, so yes, please do that. We will have more content in store. I'm working on spreading the news to other socials, so we'll do that on top of raising the tater tot. It's fine. We got time. It's fine. But yeah, so if you could do that for us, that would be extremely helpful. We would be very thankful for that. And as always, is there anything else we need to tell them? Like, like and subscribe. I don't know.
Okay, thanks, bye.
Yeah, okay, thanks, bye. But as always, stay spooky, friends.